So we are here with Alicia Shoemaker of Flamingo Consulting LLC, talking about networking and having an open discussion with the Northeast Business Association. So we just shared a little bit about why we network, and we'll keep going with Alicia. Take it away.
Perfect. Deb, did you want to add anything about what you feel you get from networking?
Yeah, I think that one of the reasons I joined NEBA in the first place was just to be really connected to the community and understand some of the issues that we're facing, not just in business, but in terms of education and building community. Those things are very important to me. And I want to see us have a healthy community, which I think really depends on healthy business and healthy schools and people involved in all of these issues.
Yeah.
And it is amazing, people from all the different parts of the world seemingly turn up in our meetings, and they've been really, really productive, especially when we could meet face to face.
Yeah, absolutely. AJ, do you want to hit the next slide for me? So there's really a ton of benefits to networking. And I think we all kind of know these and they're pretty ingrained. It's one of the reasons why everybody kind of jumps in when we're like, hey, we're doing a networking event and we're doing a happy hour. One, it does strengthen those business connections. Like Dave, like you were talking about, those connections with doctors are really important because they're the ones that are going to be referring people to you, but also staying connected with other professionals or professionals within the same general field give you an idea of other things that are kind of brewing in the background, the things that maybe you should be prepared for that might be coming down the pike a little bit. It gives you those fresh ideas, new knowledge. It can help you advance your career. So it's not just for business owners. A lot of times I feel like it's really, we focus on business owners and high-level executives. They're the ones that should network. In reality, having a strong networking relationship or strong networking connections with other people, even in the same field or profession as you, can be really value adding when you're looking for new opportunities. It gives you a chance to become recognizable. So if I end up catching you at 2 or 3 different networking events or meetings that I'm dropping into, you start to recognize who I am and what I can bring to the table, and I'm more recognizable when you do need something that I offer. My favorite, and I can attest to this myself, it does help you to build confidence. Because the more comfortable you get talking about what you do, it makes it even easier to kind of push the bounds of what else can I do? It helps you to step out of your comfort zone and figure out what other new things that you might be capable of. Finally, it helps you develop personal relationships. Maybe relationships with somebody that you're not going to do business with or not planning to do business with, but they also have a passion for something that you do. If you love hiking and you would never have met this hiking partner unless you happen to be at the same event and talking about things like that you are passionate about, all of a sudden you have a new buddy to go hike with. Not that I hike, but in theory, that's a thing I hear. So it's different opportunities to not only spread your business circle, but also your personal circle. I can't tell you how many times we all need somebody to lean on or need to have a connection with somebody. This is a great way to meet other people that might have the same interests as you. So go ahead and drop to the next slide. So let's talk a little bit about where do you think about networking? So again, open discussion. How do you decide what groups or organizations you want to try out or you want to network with?
Usually for me, it happens with an invite from someone, or it's a group that is led by someone that I admire. So for example, I got invited to NEBA by Chris when I started my account with consumers. And the other big organization that I love networking with is Power Lunch, and that's run by Shelly Irwin. So if you ever listen to the GVSU morning show, you know Shelly is one of those people that you want to get to know. So it was really easy to say, well, I definitely want to get in with that group because I really enjoy her and what she stands for. And so I'm going to meet a lot of people that way as well. So an invite, or it's led by someone that I already know who they are and admire.
Interesting. Anybody else?
Yeah, for me, I have particular political interests, and I want to see a particular political philosophy in my daily life and in my national life. And so it's very important to me to be involved with groups that support my political interests. In addition, I think personal passions like ecology, the environment, those groups I actually search for online. And if I didn't know someone already who was involved in that, I would want to know what they were doing, what activities I could be involved in and support. So I think it goes beyond the personal. It's actually involves some research at times.
Perfect. Anybody else? Great. You're going to switch to the next slide for me, AJ. So there's a few different things that you can consider when you're looking for new organizations. I always do love a good referral for, hey, this group is amazing, you should check it out. Those are usually the ones that I'm getting a referral from somebody I respect, and I want to make sure that I kind of have a good connection there. Especially when I was first getting into networking for my business, I wanted that referral because I wanted somebody I knew in the room that would make me feel a little bit more confident, or at least it wasn't like I was walking in blind. But the more comfortable I got, the more I'm willing to try out new avenues for networking. So that's where that confidence building comes in. You can look for things like educational organizations, alumni associations, location-based like NEBA, where we are specifically kind of geographically based, professional groups. There are a ton of marketing associations out there that I kind of drop into different networking events for. For Deb, you were talking about those political affiliations and wanting to stay connected with those groups and organizations. That's another way that you can choose what type is best for you. Finally, I would really push you to think about quality over quantity. It's great that there's going to be 500 professionals at a meeting, at a networking event that you're going to pay to get into. But you may make only really a couple of strong connections for having to pay to attend. Having smaller groups that give you the opportunity to drop in more often, I find are more valuable because it creates a stronger relationship. The people that you're meeting at that 500 person networking event also met 499 other people, right? Having 100 not so great connections is not as good to me as 3 really strong connections that might come out of a different group. So focus on the quality of the group versus the number of events you can drop into. Plus, if you have to do all the follow-up, it's not so fun to have to follow up with 100 instead of 3, especially when they're good ones. So let's talk about some networking best practices. Everybody has their own kind of ways that they feel are most comfortable and most successful when it comes to networking, and I want to hear yours. What are your personal do's and don'ts when it comes to networking events?
Well, I would have to say that I have gotten away from some of the, like, especially if I'm going solo, I've gotten away from a lot of the like crazy events where there's like hundreds of people or like, just tons of people, especially if a lot of them already know each other. I feel like a lot of times those can get uncomfortable and it's hard to get connections. So I've tried to make it a point of being in a little bit smaller networking things for that same exact reason, kind of that quality over quantity, I should say. I just remember when I first started, I was like, I'd do anything that I could get my hands into. I'd be like, any chance I had to meet anybody. And I just found that like a lot of times I was spinning my wheels, I'd go out and I'd hand out 10 business cards and not make a single real connection with anybody. So I find it much more successful that either one, go with the group so I know more people and it's easier to talk, or 2, do smaller events where it's just a little bit easier to talk to people.
I love that. What about at events? Are there things that you do at events or you don't do at events because you don't like doing them or they don't feel like they're successful?
I would add here 2 things. One, an elevator speech. I feel so much more prepared when I know exactly what I'm going to say when someone says, "So, what do you do?" It's tricky to say it off the cuff and explain, especially since what I do is kind of nebulous and hard to pin down for a lot of people who haven't experienced it before. So I love having the elevator speech, which if you're not familiar with an elevator speech, 30 seconds, 3 sentences that say exactly who you are, what you do, and why you are the best at it, what makes you unique. The other thing is I try to do my best to eat before I go, so I'm not eating at the event, because otherwise I always end up having food in my mouth when someone's trying to talk to me. So if I can't do that, I always run and grab food, eat it really quick, and then start mingling with people. Otherwise, it just feels very uncomfortable to me.
That is a great one. I find I do the same thing mostly because if there is food, like that is absolutely what I end up focusing on because I'm a foodie instead of focusing on actually meeting people. So I do the same thing. But I don't feel the same way about having like a drink in my hand, water or a cocktail if it's a cocktail hour or something. It's just that's easy to kind of take a sip and keep going. But yeah, food definitely. There's always something in your mouth when somebody says something really important or you asks you a question. It's just like it's a magic trick. Anything else?
Oh, I was just going to say, so one of my rules is don't be shy. You know, if you're going to go there, just plan on smiling and going to groups. You know nobody there, but you know, you have 2 or 3 people standing there in a conversation. It's easy to drift up and if it's something that, you know, you're generally all going to be interested in, say something. You know, it just doesn't help to be in a seat against a wall somewhere.
Yeah. I feel like that's a little more intimidating on a larger scale if you have a big event to go in, like Chris, you said, right, going in by yourself, it's a little harder to do that. But smaller groups, I find, tend to be more welcoming, wanting to get everybody introduced. And I at least that's my experience, is those smaller groups tend to be a little bit easier to drop into and be less shy in the beginning.
I guess I've done it for so long. It's
You're a pro. All right. Anything else to add on best practices before I kind of drop in some of mine? All right. AJ, you want to hit my next slide for me? So I could go on and on about all of these, but I'm going to kind of hit them quickly. And if we want to talk about any in particular, we really can. So number 1 to me is authenticity is key. Being yourself. If you're a huge smiler anyways, make sure you're smiling. If you are a little more demure and quiet, then be that person. You know, to pretend you're this loud, ostentatious person in a networking event, and then you go meet them in real life and you're kind of quiet and mousy, somebody's going to question whether they actually met the real you and which one is the real you. So I think if you're trying to build long-term professional relationships, just be yourself. And maybe just curb foul language if you talk like a sailor. Like that would be my only recommendation in larger scale events. Second thing is share your passion. So when you are going to speak up, make sure that it's something that you can really stand behind. If it's something like what's your hobby and and somebody else is talking about something that you get into also, great. Like I said, I'm not a hiker. If people are talking about hiking, time to go refill the water glass because I got nothing passionately to add about hiking except that I don't do it. You know, be that person, but share about your passion. If somebody's talking about young kids or school being out for the summer or stained glass making is my new favorite passion. Shoot, we are going to talk about that for the next 10 minutes. And you're going to know that I am obsessed with that thing. Let's go up to the top again and talk about listening. Dominating the conversation doesn't really accomplish anything. So if you can listen, learn, and speak up when you have something valuable to add, that is going to be more valuable to your experience and to the experience of other people there than anything else. Ask questions. Try to keep them open-ended. They're never yes and no. It's what do you like to do for fun? What got you into this career? Hey, how did you find this organization? What kinds of things do you do on weekends? Any of those things where it gives somebody a chance to talk about their passion gives you an opportunity to learn from them and find if you have something similar in that makes you guys alike. That would be a great connection point. Be a connector. If you can't help, you may not be able to help every new connection you make at a networking event. Somebody might be looking for something that is completely outside of your wheelhouse. But if you know somebody that can help them, it is in your best interest, one, to help them because helping people is always a benefit. But also they're going to remember that you connected them with something that they needed. And maybe next time they need something, they might come to you and go, hey, I know you seem to know everybody. I need this. And maybe that thing is actually you this time. So always be that connector and focusing on that connection. Finally, and this one is really hard for people first getting into networking, is you're building a relationship not sales. Okay. An event like this even is not about me trying to close a hard sale right now. It's a way for me to connect with somebody and say, let's meet up for coffee and talk about if there's an opportunity for us to work together. Hey, let's exchange emails for the next couple of weeks and see what we can do. Having a focus on building a relationship versus building a sale list is going to make your experience and others' experience meeting you that much better. One, you're not going to feel like you failed if you didn't close a deal at the table, but also it gives you a better, stronger relationship to be a connector or be connected to. Does that make sense? So those are my 6 favorites. Again, I could go on for hours on this one. So, all right. So the next question a thing I really want to talk about, and I know everybody's kind of in flux and going at their own pace with this. So for you, are you planning on staying virtual? Are you ready to be back in person shaking hands? Or are you somewhere in between?
I'm definitely an in-betweener because I love virtual for the fact that I don't have to go anywhere. You can see I am in the office right now. And it just means that I can meet and connect with people without having to break up my whole day or, say no to an event because it's in person. But then there are definitely I can pick and choose a couple of in-person events as well. So I'm excited to do a mix of both.
I'm ready to be back shaking hands 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I've always been very respectful of everyone's opinions and feelings and the realness of things. But me personally, I have been still all about shaking hands since day one.
Yeah. It's kind of felt like a rough year, especially for super extroverted people who love that in-person energy exchange to then be stuck behind a screen and really small pictures, right?
I think it helps that my professional life has been pretty virtual for the past 10 years anyway. So that might be why I'm the outlier there.
What about you, Deb?
Yeah, I like Zooming for business. I like, very factual decisions made, whatever we have to do, let's do it. I do not like it for networking. I get huge energy from people in a room, and it feels so much more natural to me to just be completely spontaneous and, to be able to react to people's whatever they're thinking and really engage with them, which I just cannot. It just doesn't do anything for me staring at people's little teeny pictures,
Yeah,
But
I don't get the
Makes sense. Yeah.
I don't get the same thing out of I was gonna say I don't get the same thing with this as I do our mornings that we used to get together
yeah,
where we're in a room and we're chit-chatting around the coffee machine and that and shaking hands and catching up. This isn't the same.
I am of the, I will probably continue to do a hybrid, mostly because of, limitations on time. It's easier for me to drop into a Zoom event because it has a start and an end time. There's really no travel time. There's no, getting from A to B or arranging a sitter in my case for an extra half hour before and an extra half hour after. And from a logistical standpoint, more than anything else, that's an issue. So I will likely continue moving forward with both. But I'm really excited to get back in person. I do get much more of an energy boost from in-person meetings than I do from Zoom meetings.
I really like the way that Deb put it, the difference between, is this a business thing where there's boxes to check, or is this a more nebulous, like creating relationships? I love that.
That's a great example. So as we're thinking about us moving in the direction of being back in person and being in the same space, obviously there is still some lingering effects from the last year and a half. How do you see, in your opinion, networking changing when we are back in person?
I'd be curious if there'll be a shift towards asking permission to shake someone's hand from that kind of standpoint, to say, are you shaking hands right now?
Or are we doing new things like fist bumping, elbows?
Yeah, exactly. See how much of that kind of stays as part of our culture. That'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I'm curious about whether people are just so sick of Zoom that getting an audience is just going to be less and less of an option for social interaction. when social is available, why would I prefer to be back on Zoom? You know, I mean, I get your reasons, Alicia. You know, especially coming in and out of a business meeting or something as a consultant. Again, I think that is very appropriate. I mean, I feel it's really appropriate for me and what I prefer. But I'm just going to be interested to see if Zoom still has the impact or the, you know, people caring to do it, because I mean, like, I'm over it.
Yeah. I think there's going to be a mix. You know, I think if anything, the last year and a half has kind of taught everybody that business doesn't really have boundaries anymore. So like, for instance, my business, there's absolutely no requirement that my clients be in my backyard, right? And so for me, Zoom meetings and Zoom interactions are going to continue to be a thing, even for networking, because I don't have those same bounds around like a physical location. But I do see a lot more of it is going to be people actively seeking out those opportunities versus I don't have any other choices. So even though you're right next door, I need to be on Zoom. I see a lot more of the in-person being locally based organizations that are much more closely defined, at least from my perspective. Anybody else? Awesome. The
One of the
only
things
other,
that
oh,
I
go
was
ahead.
gonna say, one of the things that I think will change forever is people are starting to realize they can work from home. And so a lot of businesses that would have a room filled with a bunch of different people, like cubicles, they might, if they can work at home, we might see more people just staying at home and working from home, which would require then the Zoom meetings would have to, if you're gonna have a meeting, you're not gonna, you know, if you have 5 people that are sitting at home, they're not gonna, you know, leave that to get together. But I think that's kind of changed the workforce. COVID has changed. There's gonna be a lot more people working at home than there was before COVID.
I agree. I definitely agree. Awesome. All right, so that is pretty much wraps up the discussion side of things. Please be sure to visit NEVA GR, and that way you can stay up to date on all of the active members, and you can become a member yourself. I highly recommend becoming a member, mostly because it is awesome and there's all sorts of benefits and perks, including getting social media spotlighted and shout outs and opportunities to connect with other small businesses and business owners and other business professionals. So there's my one plug for NEVA.
Thanks for that, Alicia. Appreciate it very, very much.